Hello there, you're watching Left, Right and Centre on NDTV. I'm Maha Siddiqui. The storm is coming and the country is braced up. In anticipation of the landfall of Cyclone Biparjoy, evacuation from critical areas of impact have been done. The most important being Jakku in Gujarat, where the cyclone will make a landfall as per the Indian Met Department. The Jakku port, one of the busiest docks in Gujarat, wore a deserted look, though the sea was rough and the winds swept and rain slashed the region. The storm has been categorized as a very severe cyclonic storm, and with it headed towards Kutch in Gujarat. Shelter homes have been set up with arrangements for rations and meals, while an action plan is being put in place to tackle medical and health emergencies. That's what Union Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia has said. We'll get you all the details from the ground as our reporters span out across the region to get us the latest. And food delivery platform Zomato has been served a notice by the National Commission for Scheduled Castes over the portrayal of a Dalit character in one of its ad campaigns. Zomato's ad on World Environment Day featured actor Aditya Lakhia, who portrayed the character of Kachra in 2001 movie Lagan. The advertisement draws a link between the character Kachra with actual Kachra or garbage and was aired on World Environment Day on the 5th of June. The backlash resulted in the ad being pulled down, but was it too late, as it already conveyed the insensitivity that was more than avoidable? The question we are asking, was that promoting awareness on an issue or casteism? But first up, Cyclone Biparjoy has weakened to a very severe cyclonic storm but has extensive damaging potential when it makes landfall on Thursday. This as per the Indian Met Department. On Thursday, Kutch, Devbhoomi Dwarka, Jamnagar, Porbandar, Rajkot, Junagadh and Morbi districts will see the highest wind speeds. The wind will be 125 to 135 kilometers per hour, where the cyclone makes a landfall, gusting up to 150 kilometers per hour as well. The winds could uproot trees in its path and has the potential to create large-scale devastation. Standing crops could also be damaged. Sohit Mishra is now joining us with more details on the processes of evacuation that are being undertaken by the authorities and the situation on the ground at the moment. Sohit, bring us the exact details of what you're seeing around you at the moment. Where exactly are you and what is the status of the evacuations in that area?
Well, right now I am in Pipri school. Now this is in Mandvi, which comes in Kutch, and this is said to be one of the places which might be impacted the most. So that's why the people, especially the fishermen who are staying from 0 to 5 kilometers in the coastline, have been evacuated. And what you see are these people who have been evacuated and brought to the schools nearby, and now they will be staying over here at least till 16th, because the schools are also being shut till Saturday. Now there are special arrangements being made. What you see over here is a 1-year-old boy who is sleeping. So there are arrangements made for them. There are small children for them. There are milk and other arrangements made. In fact, there are several other arrangements made for women, children, as well as for their food, and everything is also being taken care. You can also see the children sleeping over here. They have been brought around 4 p.m. Let's speak to them and understand what exactly was told to them. आप अपना नाम बताइएगा पहले.
मेरा नाम कौशल बानू है.
कौशल जी, ये जानना चाहेंगे आप लोग कितने बजे आए, आप लोग को कितना समय पहले ये बोला गया और क्या क्या सामान लेकर आए आप?
हम लोग को 2 बजे बोला था, हम लोग को यहाँ 4 बजे आए ले, तो हमको कुछ नहीं बोला. 2 घंटे पहले हमको बोला था कि तुम्हारा सामान ले लेना, हम लोग को यहाँ से निकलना है, तूफान आने वाला है बहुत बड़ा, तो निकलना है. तो हम लोग तो थोड़ी देर में सामान अपना ले लिए, एक जोड़ कपड़े के ले लिए और कंबल ले लिया हम लोग.
क्या क्या सामान लेके आए आप लोग?
हम लोग एक जोड़ कपड़े लेके आए और कंबल ले घर पर से, और कुछ भी और कुछ भी.
3-4 दिन आपका चल जाएगा कि वापस जाओगे लेने? और जो बाकी वहाँ पे कीमती सामान रहेंगे उसका क्या?
सब ऐसे छोड़ के आए, जिसको लेना तो वो ले लिए, जिसको छोड़ना तो वो छोड़ के आए. अच्छा. फिलहाल तो अभी हम लोग ऐसे ही आए ले.
आपके गांव का नाम बताइएगा.
मोंडवा गांव में.
मोंडवा. तो अभी मोंडवा गांव में कोई रह रहा है कि सब आ गए हैं?
सब लोग आए, कोई भी नहीं वहाँ पर, पूरा गांव खाली हो गया हमारा.
So as you heard, all of them are here. Whatever they could take, especially the blankets and the clothes, they brought that and they are sitting over here. यहाँ पे क्या क्या व्यवस्था है? ये जो छोटे बच्चे हैं, वो जो सो रहा है उसका उम्र क्या होगा और क्या क्या उसकी उम्र पहले बता दीजिए.
वो 1 साल का है बच्चा. 1 साल.
और क्या बच्चों के लिए क्या व्यवस्था है, आप लोगों के लिए क्या व्यवस्था?
हम लोग आए पर हमको खाना पानी पूछ दिया, हम बच्चों लोग को दूध दे दिया है, हाँ दूध दे दिया बच्चों लोग को। अब दूसरा हमारा खाना और बन रहा है, हमारे लिए बन रहा है।
हाँ वो तो मैंने भी देखा. So what she is saying that the dinner is yet pending, and yes, the dinner is being made right next over here where we also visited, and the menu for tonight is pulao along with buttermilk. So this is the type of preparations that is being done. So as I said, this is a classroom, but now it has been converted into a temporary center where the people, especially the fishermen, are kept, and they'll be staying over here at least till the time there's a cyclone, or at least there is danger. And this is just one of the rooms. You will find several similar rooms over here, and there are two schools. So this is the primary school where we are present, and again in the secondary school, again there are people, there are men, women, children, all of them are present, and most of them over here are fishermen staying waiting for their dinner that needs to be done. And this is how they are staying, and this is the arrangement at least as of now which is being done. It is raining over here and it is pitch dark at night. You can't see a lot of things. There are other people who are staying on the other side as well, and this is the school property where we are currently standing, and this is the type of arrangement that is being done on ground. As I said, from 0 to 5 kilometers, all those who are staying near the coast are being evacuated and being brought to such places. We also try to go near the sea just to understand if there is anything. So what we came to know is that the hotels which are near the beaches have been shut. There are barricades that have been brought everywhere. No one is allowed to go over there. There is NDRF, SDRF, as well as the several other local authorities whose help is being taken. In fact, the food is on the way is what we are being told. As you could see, they are taking the utensils for the food which will be brought over here. So this is the type of arrangements that are being done at night. They were brought today itself at 4 p.m. and they'll be staying over here at least for a couple of days. And this is just one of the places where we are currently present, and there will be several such similar situation in other different areas as well as districts too.
So very briefly, I want to quickly ask you, obviously this is an emergency situation, and as you were speaking to one of those evacuees there, she clearly pointed out that they could just barely manage to grab one set of clothing and just rush out of the house. The storm is such that it is likely to cause widespread devastation as well, which will mean that the government will have to step in to provide further relief as well. Many of them could even lose their homes and property probably. I mean, that's what is being anticipated at the moment, because the wind speed is 150 kilometers per hour is expected to be that.
Absolutely, and that is the question I asked the MLA of this very area as well. And he said that the first priority as of now is to make the citizens safe, and later they will also be seeing what can be done to ensure, or if there is any damage, what will be done by them to ensure that they don't face a lot of difficulties. This is what is being said. But since, as you rightly said, that this is a emergency situation, and the first priority for them was to bring those who are staying near the coast to a safe place. So that is what they have done, and now there will be planning, and which will be done again by the government, where they will make further planning on what needs to be done next, because as you heard, most of their things are over there. Their valuables are in their own houses because they can't carry everything over here. There is no one over there, so they'll have to plan something out for that. What will they do, or how will they help after the cyclone goes or passes from here would be very important to see.
So, many thanks for joining us with all those details. Stay safe, and we are, of course, praying for all the people. People have been evacuated and brought to safer areas, to shelters. Dr. Mrityunjay Mahapatra, Director General of IMD, and Narendra Bundela, IG NDRF, are both here with us. Many thanks, both of you gentlemen, for joining us here. Coming first to you, Dr. Mrityunjay, considering that this storm that we're talking about, the cyclone, it is believed has now the grade of the cyclone has gone down slightly. Can we expect that by the time there is landfall, the intensity could further go down? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, there has been slight weakening just by about 10 kilometers per hour wind speed. Otherwise, its wind speed at present is about 150 to 160 kilometers per hour, and in gustiness it is 180 kilometers per hour. But when it will move from tomorrow morning towards north-northeast, it is expected that it will weaken further slightly, and on 15th morning, when it will be approaching towards Saurashtra-Kutch and adjoining Pakistan coast, its wind speed will be 125 to 135 kilometers per hour, gusting to 150 kilometers per hour. But this wind speed can be categorized as the very severe cyclone storm. So therefore, the potential of this cyclone is still to cause the large scale damage as a very severe cyclone storm. Therefore, all actions should be taken to meet out any adverse impact of this very severe cyclonic storm.
Okay.
As for the latest status, we are consistent in our forecast, and we expect that by evening of 15th June, the very severe cyclone storm would cross Saurashtra-Kutch and adjoining Pakistan coast between Mandvi and Karachi and close to Jakhau port with wind speed of 125 to 135, gusting to 150 kilometers per hour.
All right. Sir, do stay on with us. Narendra Bundela, what is the current situation of the evacuations and shelters? And now India has a lot of experience in bringing its citizens to safety before such cyclones hit. However, is every situation a new learning?
So, state government has made a very extensive plan for evacuation and shelter for the citizens. And so far, as per report, till 6 p.m., 37,794 people have been shifted to shelters, and shelters are around 1521 which are working across the districts in the affected region. So it is expected that nearly 442 villages will be affected by the cyclone, which will affect around 59.5 lakhs people. So depending upon the forecast and the further development, state government, district authorities will decide how many to shift. So that work is already on.
Are there any specific challenges in the evacuation process?
So far no challenge, because 18 teams of NDRF and 12 teams of SDRF are on the ground. Apart from the various agencies like police, district, machinery, authorities, health, transport, so many departments are working. Fisheries department is also working round the clock, so that boats are also not venturing in the open sea. It's very dangerous. So it's going on quite smoothly. So we have to focus on evacuation. We have to monitor the path of the cyclone, and accordingly we have to react so that it passes by smoothly.
Dr. Mrityunjay, a lot of people are wondering what is resulting in these increased frequency of storms. Is there any reason for it?
Now, if you just look at the entire North Indian Ocean, there is no increase in frequency of the storm.
Okay.
But if you consider the Arabian Sea, also there is no significant increase in total number of storms. But the number of extremely severe cyclonic storms show an increasing trend in recent decades, like since 1990 over the Arabian Sea. There has been number of studies to find out whether it is the impact of the climate change. I was a member of this expert committee of the World Meteorological Organizations. We analyzed all the research output across the globe for different ocean basins, and we found that with low confidence we can say that the increase in frequency of intense cyclones, that is extremely severe cyclones over the Arabian Sea, could be attributed to the climate change.
Okay, so climate change clearly seems to be one of the biggest reasons for the increased not frequency, but as Dr. Mrityunjay is explaining, this intensity of the storms that we are seeing is definitely higher at this juncture. Mr. Bundela, Narendra Bundela, coming back to you now, sir, as I was just discussing with our correspondent there as well, that since the storm is expected to be very severe, and Dr. Mrityunjay has explained that the wind speeds are up to 150 kilometers per hour, we are expecting anticipating rather extensive damage. I mean, one can only hope that it doesn't turn out that way, but since a lot of things can be understood because of the scientific improvement, we can foresee some situation of this nature. What will be the role of the agencies once the storm has passed? Because people's lives, on the path of the storm will be pretty much shattered.
So rehabilitation will be extremely important.
Yes.
Immediately after the cyclone. That would involve clearing of the road so that transport is restored, electricity restoration is there, water supply restoration, their medical facility should be there available to the citizens. So a lot of rehabilitation work will start after the cyclone. So it depends what damage it has caused. Accordingly, state government and the central government would be planning and executing it also.
Narendra Pundela, is there any assessment of the kind of damage that we are likely to experience?
So with the forecast of the IMD, say minimum 125 km/h wind speed would be there. So weak structures, especially with having tin sheds and all, they are very vulnerable during the cyclone. Hopefully the stronger structures where the shelter homes are working, strong buildings, it should not be very affected, but it can cause damage to trees, uprooting of trees, poles. Those things are anticipated and we are ready to handle it also.
Narendra Pundela and Dr. Mrityunjay Mahapatra, many thanks both of you for joining us here on this discussion. Let's move on now to our other discussions tonight. Zomato has been served a notice by the National Commission for Scheduled Castes over the portrayal of a Dalit character in one of its ads that was taken down after a social media backlash. Ironically, it was an ad for raising awareness on a sensitive issue like environment on World Environment Day, but led to an insensitive portrayal in another sensitive issue regarding caste. The advertisement draws a link between the character Kachra from the film Lagan with Kachra with the Hindi word for garbage sparking outrage. After the backlash on social media, the company took down the video, saying that it had unintentionally hurt certain communities. Unintentionally, this is what Zomato had to say. We may have hurt the sentiments of certain communities and individuals. We have taken down the video. This is what the company said. Now, Vasudha Venugopal explains this entire fiasco.
One of the greatest creative minds of our time, David Ogilvy, had once said that a good ad is one that sells the product without drawing attention to itself. But what a recent Zomato ad did was exactly the opposite of that. Now, the food delivery platform has been served a notice by the National Commission for Scheduled Castes, NCSE, for its recent advertisement that was seen as derogatory and casteist. Now, this was a week after the food delivery service withdrew the ad after receiving backlash over its portrayal of Kachra. Now, Kachra here is not some household waste that they were talking about. They actually showed a person, incidentally the same actor, who played the role of Kachra in the award-winning movie Lagan, and showed him doing a lot of tasks as an inanimate object like a table or a potted plant. Now, this ad that was actually meant to promote the message of recycling ended up upsetting a lot of people, particularly Bahujan groups, because they felt it was actually dehumanizing and humiliating Dalits. If you remember, Lagan, one of India's official entries to the Oscars, had shown Kachra as a person of the marginalized caste, playing a pivotal role in the victory of the cricket team in the movie. Many Dalit experts who lashed out against Zomato ad also said that the way the character was portrayed in the movie was also problematic, but what Zomato did was demeaning Dalits because it normalized such behavior. Now, why is this issue so important? Zomato has already taken down the ad and it has been almost a week. Some say that advertising is not equipped to show all truth of a reality. But the controversy here has shown that advertising is often tone deaf and invisibilizes a social context, which is why brands and businesses need to address the issue of caste better. It has forced us to ask a few questions as to when movies and OTT shows have started showing at least some prominent characters from marginalized groups, and when tech giants in the US are also showing some inclination to understand caste, why is advertising not being more representative? Many ads in the past have also come under scrutiny for their insensitive portrayal of Dalit characters and Dalit issues. For instance, an electronics maker a few years ago was deeply criticized on showing a suicide and talking about merit right after Rohit Vemula's death. A professor of sociology at IIT Bombay, Suryakant Vagmore, feels that the advertising industry is not trained in the basics of Indian society, and advertisement of Zomato should actually serve as a case study on how not to be creative. Paul Divakar, another prominent Dalit activist, has also said that there is very little about Dalit culture or aspirations shown in Indian advertising, and there should be a conscious effort to be more inclusive. Now, probably the most important piece of advice has come from Sumit Maskar, who teaches at the Jindal School of Government and Public Policy, who said that corporate India thinks caste diversity is in terms of inefficiency, and that it's important to get out of that mindset. And companies need to make a conscious effort to include people who belong to socially marginalized groups, and also facilitate an office environment where people are comfortable talking about everyday discrimination. So the Zomato ad saga is a wake-up call for corporate India, for brands and businesses address our social context better.
Let me quickly introduce our guests who are joining us on the show tonight. Dilip Cheran, founder and consulting partner, Perfect Relations. Dr. Suraj Yengde, author and columnist at the Indian Express and public intellectual and scholar at Harvard and Oxford. And Professor Badri Narayan, sociologist. Let me, before I go across to our guests, bring in Vijay Sampla, chairman of the National Commission for Scheduled Castes. Many thanks, Mr. Sampla, for speaking with NDTV. मेरा पहला सवाल आपसे ये है कि कमीशन ने बोला इस मैटर को इन्वेस्टिगेट किया जाएगा. किस तरह से इन्वेस्टिगेशन होती है इन मैटर्स की, क्योंकि यहाँ क्वेश्चन इंटेंशन का भी है. वो जो जोमैटो का कहना है कि उनका इंटेंशन नहीं था ये करने का, तो किस तरह से इन्वेस्टिगेशन करेंगे आप?
देखिए, अभी हमने मीडिया में कुछ खबरें छाया हुई हैं, उन्हीं को ही बेस लगा के हमने जोमैटो नोटिस लेते हुए इसके ऊपर किया है. और उसके बाद जब हमने देखा तो कुछ सोशल मीडिया के ऊपर उनका और ट्विटर वगैरह के ऊपर एक वीडियो जो चल रही थी, और उसको हमने ध्यान से देखा, जिसमें एक करैक्टर को उन्होंने एक लगान फिल्म में था, जिसको एक कैटेगरी के साथ ही, हमारी एक अनुसूचित जाति के साथ ही जोड़ के देखा जा रहा है, और उसी को उन्होंने कचरे के रूप में उसको रिसाइकलिंग का लिए बनाया, और जो कि गलत तरीके से बताया गया. तरीके और बहुत थे अच्छे मैसेज देने के लिए, मगर ये तरीका जो है वो ठीक तरीका नहीं है और गैर मानवीय तरीका है और ऑब्जेक्शनेबल है, जिसके देखते हुए हमने नोटिस दिया है. हमने यूट्यूब को भी नोटिस दिया है कि क्योंकि उनके वहाँ पे चैनल पे ये चली है, और हमने जोमैटो को भी नोटिस दिया क्योंकि दिल्ली में ये अखबारों में छपा है, तो इसलिए हमने सीपी दिल्ली को भी नोटिस दिया, और हमने उसका तुरंत प्रभाव से, तुरंत रिटर्न फैक्ट से ही उनसे जवाब मांगा है, ताकि ये जो जल्दी से जल्दी हमें ये बताएं और उसके ऊपर क्या फैक्ट हैं और उसके तथ्य जो है हमें जानकारी पूरी दें. और उनसे जवाब तलबी किया, और उनके जवाब तलबी आने के बाद ही हम उसके ऊपर आगे फर्दर क्या कार्रवाई करेंगे, उसके ऊपर उसके हिसाब से ही तय किया जाएगा.
ठीक है, लेकिन सांपला जी ये बताइए कि इस तरह के केसेस में एक्शन क्या लिया जाता है अक्सर?
देखिए, एक्शन तो, क्योंकि एक्शन तो लेना पहले उनका जवाब तलबी ही उसके ऊपर ही हुआ, और अगर उसके कहीं भी हमें वो साबित नहीं कर पाते तो उसके ऊपर वो जो SC एक्ट के तहत भी कार्रवाई हो सकती है, और बाकी धाराएं भी लगती हैं जो IPC की हैं, और उसके साथ साथ PO एक्ट की धारा भी लगती है. और मगर ये कौन सी धारा कब लगेगी ये तय उनके जवाब के बाद ही, उनकी जो है के बाद ही तय होगा, और उसमें जो इन्वेस्टिगेशन का ही हिस्सा रहेगा. इसीलिए हमने पुलिस कमिश्नर से ही इसकी जो रिपोर्ट तलब की है. और जहाँ तक है कि ये इस ऐड को जो हम समझते हैं कि बहुत सारे ऐसे हैं जो कि ये मानते हैं कि बदनाम हुए तो क्या हुआ, नाम तो हुआ. ये धारणा पे काम करने वाले बहुत सारी आजकल एजेंसी काम कर रही हैं. और क्योंकि पहले भी इन्होंने एक महाकाल मंदिर को एक इशू बना के ऐसे ऐड दिया था, सेम कंपनी ने ही, तब भी इन्होंने बाद में माफ़ी मांगकर काम छुटकाया, और आज फिर दोबारा ऐसा किया है. और इससे क्या है कि मानसिकता छलकती है कि ये बार बार कोई ना कोई ऐसा आपत्तिजनक ऐड ही क्यों तैयार करते हैं, और यही कंपनी क्यों करती है, और ये ऐड करके और कहीं ना कहीं इशू खड़ा करती है, और फिर वही कि बदनाम हुए तो क्या हुआ, नाम तो हुआ, लोगों के बीच में चर्चा आ गई और हमारी कंपनी मशहूर हो गई. अगर इनकी इच्छा शक्ति ऐसी हो तो बहुत सारे तरीके और थे रिसाइकलिंग के मैसेज देने के लिए, और कंपनियां भी देती हैं. बाकी अखबारों में भी गवर्नमेंट की पॉलिसी को प्रोत्साहित करने के लिए बहुत सारी कंपनियों के ऐड आती हैं, मगर उनमें कहीं आपत्ति नहीं होती है. वो अपनी कंपनी की ऐड के साथ साथ समाज की दृष्टि से, जो सरकार की जो है दृष्टि से, जो लोगों को संदेश देना होता है वो देते भी हैं। पानी बचाव का है, पेपर बचाव के लिए आते हैं, हर बहुत सारी चीज़ें हैं, कचरे के रिसाइकलिंग के लिए जो ये है उसके लिए भी आते हैं, मगर उसमें एक करैक्टर खड़ा करके उसको बनाना वो गलत है।
लेकिन संपला जी, इतना एफर्ट करा जा रहा है अवेयरनेस के लिए, ये भी लोगों को पता है कि इस तरह के पोर्ट्रेल गलत होते हैं, दंडनीय भी हो सकते हैं, तो फिर ये अमानवीय पोर्ट्रेल है वो कैसे हुआ, ये इनसेंसिटिविटी कैसे हो जाती है?
देखिए, इसमें ये तो कह सकते हैं कि लोगों में अवेयरनेस बहुत बढ़ती जा रही है, पहले से बहुत सारा फर्क पड़ा है, मगर कई लोग जानबूझकर करते हैं, जैसा इस केस में किया गया। मुझे यहाँ पे कोई अनजाने में हो गया हो ऐसा नहीं लगता है। यहाँ पे जानबूझ, जो मैंने कहा कि बहुत सारी कंपनियों की ये रहता है कि उल्टा सीधा कुछ भी बोलो उससे ज़्यादा चर्चा होती है, और ज़्यादा चर्चा होती है तो हमारी कंपनी की ज़्यादा ऐड होती है। बहुत सारी जगह पे ऐसा है कि कुछ भी उल्टा सीधा बोल देते हैं और बाद में सबको पता चलता है कि फलां व्यक्ति फलां से, उससे उनकी ऐड भी होती है, मशहूर हो जाते हैं। यानी जैसा मैंने पहले कहा कि बदनाम हुए तो क्या हुआ, नाम तो हुआ। उस दृष्टि से ये जानबूझ के किया गया। इतना नहीं है कि उनको ये पता नहीं कि रिसाइकलिंग के लिए मैसेज कैसा देता है। कोई छोटी मोटी कंपनी नहीं है, किसी गांव में या किसी गली में काम करने वाली कंपनी नहीं है, ये बहुत बड़ी कंपनी है, और उसको बहुत सारे एडवाइज़र होते हैं इनके पास जो ऐसी चीज़ों के लिए करने के लिए बोलते हैं, और ताकि उल्टा सीधा बोलो और एडवर्टाइजमेंट ज़्यादा होगी और बाद में माफ़ी मांग लेंगे। ये कोई उस मानसिकता के साथ नहीं है, ये इनकी कमर्शियल मानसिकता के कारण ऐसा हुआ लगता, ये प्रतीत होता है।
ठीक है विजय सांपला जी, हमसे बात करने के लिए बहुत शुक्रिया। सो द कमीशन हैज आस्क्ड or rather issued a notice to various entities over here, specifically to Zomato, and basis their response will take further action. Let's move on now to our discussion. Dilip Cheran, founder and consulting partner of Perfect Relations, here with us, Dr. Suraj Jengde, author and columnist, and Professor Badri Narayan. Dilip Cheran, coming first to you, since this is pertaining to an ad, can this be justified on the grounds of creative freedom at all?
I think that Zomato has skirted on the edge of the unnecessary. I'm not saying unacceptable. It certainly may be unacceptable, but it is also unnecessary. As somebody who's sat several times on the Advertising Standard Council board, let me tell you that ads like this are always bound to create controversy. And companies over the last 10 years are more and more aware that thin-skinned consumers and thin-skinned critics are bound to attack it, and therefore are being more and more cautious. But what mystifies me totally about Zomato's ad is that it runs a controversial ad just a day or two after it has run a fantastic ad on the placement of itself on a Spider-Man movie. What a waste. Even from a marketing point of view, as somebody who understands branding, and which is what I do most of the time, I can't understand a company trampling into people's sensitivities just when it's on a marketing high, being in a Spider-Man movie. So there is something wrong here, and someone needs to check who in Zomato was taking the decisions.
All right.
And what the agency
right.
trying to create attention.
Okay, Dilip Cheran, we were losing your audio a bit there. We'll try and rectify that. Dr. Suraj, I want to come to you because you just heard the commission chairman there, and he seems to believe that this insensitive portrayal was not unintentional. Does it appear to be your opinion as well?
I have a four set of responses. I mean, you need to categorize it. The first is certainly what my colleagues Sumit and Suryakant and many others have commented, and even Anurag just came out of the piece. The idea of Zomato corporate diversity, that's the kind of first approach. The second is the role of NCSC, National Commission of Scheduled Caste, led by Honorable Mr. Vijay Sampla. The third is the category of the film, Lagan, where it kind of emanates. And the fourth is the celebrities who are making crores in such advertisements and their responsibility. Allow me just a minute to just kind of break this down, if you will. First of all, we ought to understand that the people who are responsible, who sit on the boards and also who have probably hired some company to do this kind of PR stunt, we ought to make people responsible, not just the PR company, but also the entire Zomato ecosystem, who are sitting on the board, what's the corporate diversity. And that really brings us as to how dehumanizing aspects exist amongst those who tend to be flag bearers of progressivism and values. And that really falls flat in the face of such kind of demeaning advertisement brought forth to us. Now, if National Commission for Scheduled Caste, if it's taking suo cognizance based on the characterization of kachra, which itself is an offensive, which is where people are having issues, the question remains, will NCST take action against the Lagan, against, I was going to say, kind of boorish, longish film Lagan, which was certainly an Oscar entry from India, because that's the origin of the controversy, right? So if NCSC is readily taking suo cognizance about this, the idea is it just taking into consideration just a company or the history and the echo chamber that supports it? That's why, we have a murder of a 24-year-old in my hometown, Nanded, Akshay Bhalerao, and National Commission for Scheduled Caste is nowhere there to take a cognizance when there is a brutal murder of a Dalit young man. And finally, the celebrities who are, who should be more sensitive and should outright call out and not even affiliate and associate with such kind of behaviors, how could they pass on? Mr. Samplite was mentioning about Mahakal and how Hrithik Roshan, and I wonder the kind of educational acumen these people have, if at all this fit into the stereotypes of buffoons who really don't have any kind of moral integrity, let alone an academic enterprise into understanding things. They certainly follow Western culture. They certainly stand for what black people, black lives mean, and all of that.
But many would say it falls in neither. It just falls in the category of being sensitive to a fellow human being. Professor Badri Narayan, one important point that Dr. Suraj raised there was of the portrayal of the same character in the movie Lagan. Equally insensitive, as many people have pointed out. But because one didn't raise an objection back then, has it led to the present situation? So, should objection be raised at the first instance itself?
Yeah, I think Suraj is right. The objection should come there also, and here also. I think origin and the culmination both are. We need to take cognizance of both the moment of the expressions. But I would like to say, Maha, that this shows a social plurality of discourses which are coming through media, and especially film media and the PR, advertisement, etc. And the issue of commercializing, and it's an argument which Vijay Samplaji was giving, that it's a commercial attempt. Okay, it may be commercial attempt, but commercial attempt, why this kind of issues helps to sell the films? I think it's question on our society and our social habitats, on our social mind. So I think we should raise issue on ourselves also, that why we are going to see this kind of film. Second thing is, I would like to say, Maha, that there should be a sociologist or social person who understands the social concerns in the committee who screen these films, the censor boards. Who can see the discourses and the dialogues or the characters critically. So there should be a provision like that. Otherwise, this kind of thing will happen and it will remain happen.
Okay.
So my argument is it's a question on us. It's a comment on us. It's comment on the film and media discourses. It's comment on our committee who looks after these films and their discourses. A small word or even silence can humiliate anyone. So we need to understand those things very critically and very very rigorously, I think.
Right. As you, in some sense rightly said, it's a comment on the entire society, not just on a single ad that's being mentioned here. Dilip Cherian, that also brings me to another very important point coming out from the points that both the other panelists have made. Is there a lack of diversity in the advertising space, in the media space? Because had there been a diverse set of people, at least somebody would have noticed the insensitivity because they would have felt sensitive about it.
I think there certainly is. This is a problem that many industries are today facing. Just like there is no diversity as far as gender is concerned in the boardrooms of India, so also this lack of diversity of inclusivity in terms of whether it is caste, whether it is in terms of gender, whether it is in terms of all other kinds of marginalized segments. This is something that is now coming to the fore because the product, the creative product is out there and anyone can raise an issue and it then balloons into the kind of issue which draws attention to itself. So if, as you said, Maha, that if you indeed had people of that kind to be inside the industry, then they would blow the whistle much earlier. Just as the whistle wasn't blown on Bollywood at a time when the movie was made, so also you will have more and more episodic issues which eventually will also end up crimping creativity. So if you want creativity to be unleashed, you've got to make sure that there is at the cutting table, as it were, enough people with enough diverse interests, backgrounds and enthusiasms.
So Dr. Suraj, this ad, you would clearly categorize this as a tone-deaf ad?
I will call it an outright casteist ad because it has not understood the sentiments and it really relies on a historical abyss that it thought was a moment of jovial, while at the same time it was a moment of reckoning. It should have gone back and thought about this very moment that there have been a backlash about this. And that's why I agree with my panelists, though. What we certainly need, Maha, in this case is an aggressive hiring of people belonging to the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe communities who are into the advertising industry. They have been passing out from various institutions, having fashionable degrees. They've been there. The national institutes are out there. And yet the kind of absence of this, and especially we need to elevate people from such backgrounds to a level, at least on the board level, who will be tasked with the responsibility. Now in America, where I work and operate, at various company levels, there are people of vice president rank who are exclusively responsible for diversity and inclusion. What their job is to look at the equity and to bring that. We don't have that, and I'm pretty sure that applies to media, NDTV, and various other sectors. How can we really stop doing the repeated harassment that we continue to face and really meet out to a common justice where everybody is feeling protected, valued, and certainly celebrated?
Absolutely. We are running completely out of time. I can give just 20 seconds to Professor Badri Narayan to wrap this discussion up. And I want to ask you whether we are just addressing symptoms and not the cause. The cause is that there needs to be more inclusion at all levels in the society. And therefore, then these sort of symptoms that we see occurring in ads or movies will be eliminated.
Maha, you are very right. Actually, we need to address cause. We need to address the source of the wound, and that is the addressing the social wound. And here we need to address, bring more inclusivity in the film, in the sphere of the films, in the sphere of the PR, and also we need to make a social diversity committee kind of thing with the censor board, who can critically review even a small word, even kachra name. Why one should give the name like kachra? Is it a human discourse? Kachra is human discourse. Kachra is a very inhuman word in that way. No, kachra, we all want to get free, get out from the kachra. You are making it is a question of hasnik. You want to make it a satire on something, make it laughable. And so I think we need to address the social, the root of those
All
social.
right. I'll have to thank all three of you for joining us on this
yes.
discussion. I'm sorry we've completely run out of time, but many thanks to all three of you for joining us on this discussion tonight. Taking a very quick break now. We'll be back with more. Stay with us. I have with me the Executive Director of the International Energy Agency, Fatih Birol here. Many thanks for speaking with NDTV, sir. My first question is with regards to the development ministers meeting that took place in Varanasi, the G20 meeting. Now, issues like climate change, sustainability, poverty, or poverty alleviation, I should call it, and development. These are largely intrinsically linked to the developing and poorer world. And the impact will also be felt most by these vulnerable countries. Then how does this channel onto a platform of the world's biggest economies and richest countries, the G20 platform? How do we aim to channel that? And do you see India being effectively taking the voice of the global south, something that it has taken the onus for?
Thank you. I am attending to many international summits. Only a few weeks ago in Hiroshima, upon the invitation of Prime Minister Kishida, with President Biden, President Macron, Prime Minister Modi, we discussed energy and climate issues as well. But here, I found the meeting yesterday chaired by Minister Jaishankar very, very important, because energy and development are so much interwoven. Energy is the lifeblood for economic development. But when I look at the global energy picture today, as I mentioned to all the ministers of G20 yesterday, one issue is very important, which is the inequality. There are lots of big differences between the haves and have-nots here. Let me give you one example. Electricity. Today in Africa, every second person, they don't have electricity. It's a major issue. Social, economic issue at all. It was a big problem 20 years ago in many countries, but China fixed it first, India fixed it recently, and now Africa has a big problem. And when we look at the solar today, 40% of the solar radiation in the world comes to Africa. And the solar is the cheapest source of electricity generation. Yet, the amount of solar generated in the entire African continent is equal to the solar electricity generated in Netherlands. Think about the world map. How big is the African continent is, and how small the size of Netherlands is, and this is really not acceptable. I told this to the ministers, and when it comes to climate as well, it is an issue of not today, it's an issue of last 100 years, and the rich countries, when they develop, they put a lot of carbon in the atmosphere, and there is a very little room now left for the developing countries, and I hope that now the rich countries support the emerging countries, developing countries, to access to clean energy so that they can develop with using clean energy sources. And here I am grateful to India taking the leadership of the global south and pushing the rich countries and also international financial institutions to be much more prominent, much more forceful to support the clean energy in emerging countries.
So India wants to make the climate agenda one of the major focus in G20 as well. But do you see it going any further till there is real commitment from the West on climate finance and loss and damage funding? I mean, that seems to be not really heading in the right direction as fast as it should.
You are completely right. We are not seeing yet the commitment from the advanced economies, but I am very much hoping that the countries in North America, the countries in Europe, Japan, and the rich Middle East countries, they come together and commit themselves in Dubai in the COP28 that they are ready to support emerging countries' clean energy transition, because it is once ethical, and there's a responsibility, historical responsibility. Second, it is also in their own interest, because the emissions going to atmosphere from Jakarta or from Bombay or from Detroit or from Venice, it has the same effect on everybody. Even if Europe or North America bring the emissions to almost to zero, if the other countries wouldn't bring the emissions down, they will be affected. Europeans, Americans will be affected. So it is in everybody's interest that rich countries and the World Bank, international institutions support the clean energy in developing countries. And the first test, main test, will be in Dubai, November this year.
Coming to the issue of the energy crisis that we are seeing now, the G20 platform, we've seen differences of opinion both in the finance minister's track as well as in the foreign minister's meeting of the G20 leaders. There was a point put by Russia specifically saying that you can't, it is unfair to tie up the energy as well as food insecurity currently only with the war in Ukraine. How do you see this going forward? Because the summit, the G20 summit, is just a couple of months away now, and India has this big onus of getting a consensus going. But there are grave differences at the moment, and the world still faces an energy crisis as well.
Definitely so. And India took over the G20 presidency at a time when the world was going, and still is going, very difficult geopolitical tests and a period, to be honest with you. And we will see a lot of discussions between major producers, between Russia and the Europeans and the others. But at the IEA, we look at the numbers. When you look at the numbers, the energy prices were already going up slightly, but after 24th of February, they have skyrocketed energy prices because of the geopolitical tensions. Now they are coming down a bit, but it is very obvious that the energy crisis are hurting the economies, but mainly those countries who are relying on imports of energy, especially developing countries. It's not the Europeans, it's not the Americans, it's mainly the energy import in developing countries such as the African countries, Asian countries, including India or some Latin American countries.
So how do you see India's role in this crisis? As you said, the countries that import energy are the ones facing the biggest problem at the moment. Do you see India having been able to balance its own interest well with what is happening currently in the geopolitical situation? Because India took a stand that it will continue importing fuel from Russia as well, importing energy from Russia as well.
So, when we look at the situation, as I mentioned, India took over the G20 presidency at a very difficult time when it comes to geopolitics. But in addition to difficulties, India had some responsibility as G20, but also this created some opportunities for India as well. Opportunities in terms of energy, having the Russian oil at discounted prices, which is a relief for the Indian energy, because Indian economy is very much relying on the imported energy, it is bills. But having said that, as a true friend of India, I can tell you that this relief is good, but this is not a structural relief. It's a time, 6 months, 1 year, or maybe a bit longer. If India wants to reduce its reliance on imported oil, India needs to look at the alternatives, from moving to electric cars to using renewable energies much more strongly.
What about Europe? This winter, will they be better off as far as the energy crisis is concerned?
I think Europe, in my view, made a major historical mistake. In fact, two mistakes, if I may say, when we look at the European energy strategies. Europe took a decision, and since 40 years, for it is almost all energy sources relied on one single country. This can be Russia, this can be any other country, but in the energy, you don't put all the eggs in one basket. Anything can happen. So this is one mistake. The second mistake for Europe was getting a big chunk of its energy from nuclear power, and Europe, for ideological reasons, turned its shoulder back to nuclear power. As a result of these two historical mistakes, Europe went through a very difficult time last winter, and we have seen that many European industries did suffer. Having said that, Europe was still successful putting the right policies in place, lots of renewables, lots of electric cars, lots of LNG from other countries, from United States, much more gas from Norway, Algeria. They were able to go through this. What helped Europe a lot is that last winter was very, very warm, exceptionally warm. And coming winter, Europe put a lot of gas now in the storage to be on the safe side. But if the winter is much harsher than the normal winters, then still there may be some challenges for Europe. So it is too early Europe to declare a victory, in my view.
On the back of the shocks that we've seen in the global economy, starting from COVID-19 pandemic onwards and then Ukraine, what is the status of the global economic recovery? What do you see in months to come now?
So when I look at the energy crisis, what happened 24th of February, I think the response of many economies around the world was in a, for many, surprising way. Because what we have seen, many countries have pushed the alternatives to oil, gas and coal. Solar energy, incredible growth. In 1 year, the entire world at about 40% of solar. Whatever we built in the last 30 years, we built 40% of it only in 1 year. Or let me tell you, last year, of all the power plants built in the world, 80% was renewable energy. It is a big number. Only 20% was coal and gas and the others. 80% renewables. Electric cars growing very strongly. 2 years ago, 1 out of 25 cars sold in the world was electric. 1 out of 25 2 years ago. And this year, 1 out of 5 cars sold is electric. It's going very strongly. So what we are seeing, that the clean energy is moving fast, and faster than many people think, producers, consumers and others.
I want to ask you a specific question with regards to, once again, G20, because I understand that Prime Minister Modi wants the International Energy Agency to put out a report at the Leaders Summit on life. So what will that report entail, and what do we expect the leaders, when they have that report with them, to do about environment, lifestyle and everything that is intrinsically linked to it?
This was the perhaps the biggest surprise or the good thing for all the ministers yesterday in Varanasi, because I share some of the early findings of the life mission of Prime Minister Modi. A few months ago in Bengaluru, I had a meeting with the Prime Minister Modi. He said to me, International Energy Agency is a very credible institution. Why don't you look at if the life is implemented globally, how would it change the world? So we look at it. I built a big group of experts from different nationalities with different backgrounds, and I shared some of the preliminary analysis with the ministers yesterday. For example, if the life mission is adopted globally, we can reach our climate goals much faster than we can ever imagine. If we change the behavior of the consumers, we can keep a lot of money in our pockets, and we can create millions of new jobs as a result of Life Initiative. Many ministers were very interested. After the meeting, they came to me, they wrote emails asking for the numbers, and the final results we are going to present to the G20 leaders, and I think it will be a very nice present of India to the international community.
Mr. Fateh Birol, many thanks for speaking with NDTV. That we all. Thank you.
Thank you very much.